Resume recording. Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to our first class on how to build children with integrity. And I love the way I titled that book because it kind of encompasses the way we're going to approach this book. And it's how to build children with integrity. In other words, our children will have integrity, and the children that we impact in our lives, and how to have the integrity that is necessary to build children in our lives. So I want to start out by reading the dedication, which I think is really important. This book is dedicated to all parents and teachers and those who hold babies and children in their arms and in their hearts. Those who know they desire to be more so that they can give more to the children entrusted to their care. Those who realize that when they hold children, they hold their greatest legacy. Those who realize that their hearts are grasped by tiny little fists. Those who want to learn and grow, if only so that they have more to give. Those who intend to pave the way and move obstacles out of the path so that their children can travel life's road as unimpeded and unrestricted as possible. Those who intend to fight for and win victories, if only so that their children can be more victorious. Those willing to step outside their norms, to take responsibility, to keep trying, and to believe that they can be part of positive change, healing, and renewal in training the next generation. Those who have the humility to admit what they don't have and go after what they need so that they can empower the next generation to swim against normal, to reach unprecedented levels of contentment, fulfillment, and purpose, shining in the midst of a crooked generation like a city on a hill that can't be hidden. Parents who are willing to build like Nehemiah built, fighting opposition simultaneously. Amazing parents who want to read, grow, and advance with the belief that they and their children are still for signs and wonders in the earth. I want to tell you, I know it's late at night. I really wanted to make sure that everyone could get kids in bed and get their things done. And I know right around this time, I remember when I was raising my five, I just wanted to stare at the wall around this time at night. So the good news is I can do most of the talking. I will be asking questions and giving a little bit of room to talk and introduce or talk a little bit amongst yourselves. But I do want to say, I really just want you to just envision just lifting the bar on parenting and impacting skills that you use to impact children and trying to take it to a new level and just being open to change. We already know how you're doing things now, but just be open to tweak and change where you're at now so that we can lift the bar on your impact that you're using to train this next generation. They're swimming up against a lot, aren't they? So I want you to get invigorated. I want you to know that we're going to be going through a lot of information today. I really want you to know what to expect from the next several weeks as we go through this book and the workbook. Now, I really recommend that you get this workbook into your hands. It's How to Build Children with Integrity and the workbook. It's a workbook that will help you to apply the information that you read about in the book and that we go over in the book. But it'll actually, in the workbook, it'll give you chances to strategize with any children that you're training now, any children that are in your lives regularly, and it will give you a chance to strategize and a chance to individually apply some of the information you know. And I think that it's going to be critical. In order to get this into your hands, you can actually order the book from Barnes & Noble. You can order it from Amazon or wherever any books are sold. I have a limited amount of books and workbooks available, which I purchased probably 20% off of the list price on Amazon, but I am willing to get those into your hands for $5 each, and if money's an object, for free. So you can actually private message me after the class, get on my email, or my webpage, www.karenbudzinski.com. Give me a call and we'll make an arrangement to get you the books that you need to go through this next few weeks. But, you know, walking with God showed me that his plans are for peace, not for evil. I know some of you that have many kids sometimes think that his plans might have been for a little bit of chaos, but that his plans are to give you, you know, peace, and they're to, you know, to get you to an expected end. And he wants your days on earth to be like days of heaven on earth. And that's sometimes hard to believe. So we're going to try to see what we can change in some of the things that we go through day by day to get our lives a little bit closer to his plan for us. When we focus on God's plans for us, it does move us into a different realm of living. So when we accepted Christ as Savior, we become heirs of his kingdom, and his kingdom is actually inside of us. So we have our spiritual eyes wide open, and we discover that the world we're living in truly is a spiritual world. And our lives, that our spiritual lives govern our physical lives. Our spiritual choices a lot of times determine our physical direction in life. When I first had my first child, I really didn't expect to have a baby at that time, but I'll never forget when they put that child in my arms, the meaning of Mark 10, 14, and 15 came alive in my soul. That is where Jesus said, suffer or permit the little children to come to me, for of such, and don't forbid them, for of such is the kingdom of God. Verily I say unto you, whoever will not receive the kingdom of God as a little child, he shall not enter therein. How did you receive that little child? First of all, he changed our world. His interests were never out of our mind. From the minute we first held our firstborn, we realized that every single thing that we did from then on was going to consider his welfare and his well-being. Our focus was on Jesus first and foremost, but our baby's interests were never out of our mind for every decision we made after that. So as a parent, we have this awesome ability to now understand God better, because we can understand him by seeing his Father's heart firsthand. We can see clearly how God relates to us as we see when we relate to our kids or the kids in our lives. We can see trials and blessings and how our kids respond to our love or turn away from it. And we can understand how God feels when we, as his children, we either respond or turn away from his love. When we have our love for God and our children, and as they both grow, we will see constant parallels to our spiritual life through raising your kids. I remember one day in particular, I was just going about my day, and there was one of my kids that was really going through a lot. And all I wanted to do was talk to that child. I had so many things I wanted to share to help them through that problem situation. I had physical resources. I had all different things, but I just couldn't seem to get a hold of them. And I just kept trying every day, every 2 days. And it was just heaping up like more ideas of how I could help them to solve that problem. And the more I couldn't reach them, I would just tuck it away. Okay, I'll get a hold of them later. And then one day, it was crazy. I was driving in my car, and I was realizing, like, this song came on. I wasn't even thinking of the child going through problems. And the song it said something like, he is jealous for me. And it talked about how, oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. And it just, all of a sudden, I realized how God must feel when he sits there and waits on us with all of his resources. He's got special words to get us through our problems. He's got a special thing to tell you about each one of your kids or the people in your life and how you need to relate to them. And how so many times he's waiting there for us to tap into his power and his opportunities, the things that he wants to give us. and we just go our way and get involved in other things, never once letting him and his resources in to help us solve our problems. And I'll just never forget that day. It just hit me like a ton of bricks, and I just lifted my hands up, and as I listened to that song, and I said, God, now I know how you feel, and I never, ever want you to feel that way, like I am not depending on you for what I need. And I want to make sure that you have an inroad to pour into my life like you want to. But that is why I think more than ever, we have to understand that as we have children, we can learn what the Father heart of God is. And we can show that to our kids. They're going to see that more through us than through anybody. A lot of times kids will see it in a teacher that takes them under their wing, in a foster parent, in an aunt, in an older sister, in somebody that they need to connect them to how God loves them. Children are a heritage. They're a reward. It says that as arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of the youth. Your children are going to be sent out to impact future generations for bad or for good. And they can do it either way. But as we realize the privilege and the responsibility of raising God's kids that we are stewards over, and kids that even come across our paths, not just our kids' friends that come into our path. We are stewards over them. Our nieces, our nephews, the people and the kids, that is the next generation, the biggest legacy. And how they see us can very well be how they see the Father heart of God through us. It says in the Bible, one of the scriptures I really claimed for my family were, behold, I and the children whom the Lord has given me are for signs and for wonders in the earth. And I believe that we still can train children who can be for signs and wonders in the earth, even at a very early age. It's an awesome responsibility to train the kids that God put in your hand. And the first thing is that we need to know is that we cannot give our kids anything that we don't have. We have to first seek the kingdom of God and his righteousness and have his word foremost in our heart and our mind. And then we can put them on the minds of our kids. It's not going to happen by accident, just as our spiritual growth and character don't happen by accident. Maturity is going to be focused and consistent sacrifice and effort. Listen carefully, the Bible reminds us, unless a grain of wheat is buried into the ground, dead to the world, it's never more than a grain of wheat. But if it's buried, it sprouts and can reproduce itself over and over. I'm so glad that I have some moms listening in, and I'm also glad that I have a woman that impacts children listening in, that has a heart to listen to these scriptural principles and impact this next generation because of what we are consistently and strategically going to do to put things into the hearts and minds of the kids that are in our lives. There's a lot of things that I learned in my life. And some of those things, I learned them naturally as a young girl. There were also things that I needed to learn to build into my life before I could pour into the lives of my kids. When I was a little child, even as a young girl, I wanted to learn about significance and impact, even at a young age. I wanted to make a significant impact, but I needed to make it realistic and achievable, and to keep it in the proper perspective. Some of the lessons I learned changed me instantly. Other lessons took a lot of time, and I had to go through a lot of hard knocks to get those lessons. But when I had a baby, I wanted to do all I could to prepare that child for the battles that they would face so that they could learn at an earlier age and stand on my shoulders to start in a more offensive position than I had started. I had to learn things, some of them, the hard way, but they were things that I wished I had learned earlier. So I purposed to start training my children earlier for some of the things like like discipline, self-sacrifice, like even financial prowess, things that I wanted my kids to have at an earlier age. Things like that, it's better to give than to receive. I wanted to have my children know that at an earlier age. A lot of people would come up to me when I would speak at MOPS groups, and they would say, I always was so giving to my child, and they're 14 and they think the world revolves around them. And I don't understand it because I modeled giving. But if we model giving to our children and they're only the takers, they'll never learn to be givers by taking. We have to provide opportunities for them to learn how to be givers at an early age, to learn the discipline, the self-sacrifice, the self-denial, the ability to wait for things so that they can balance it, not just with the accrual of things for themselves, but with giving things to others. So there's things that we can integrate as an early age that become habitual for them, and they're not necessarily the struggle that we had to deal with learning those things later. So a lot of times I love football, and I would always sit and watch football with my dad. And a lot of ground that I took back in my life, it was like I had to defend my position. I didn't have the ball yet. I gave up ground and I had to work hard to get that ball back, but I couldn't get the points. But hopefully this next generation, we want to put the ball in their hands so that they're not defending ground that they had to give up, and that they can run with that ball and get the points that we couldn't get because we were defending a position that we weren't able to secure early enough. Well, Benjamin is one of the tribes of Israel, and I love one of the things that it said about Benjamin, that he dwelt between the shoulders of God was the blessing that Israel had given to him. And that's what we want to do for our kids. We want them to dwell between the shoulders of God, and even between our shoulders. When I'm around any kids, any of my friends' kids, any of their grandkids, any of my kids' friends, whenever I'm around kids, I want to put them on my shoulders and pick them up and help them to see the bigger picture and beyond some of the obstacles that they're facing. And that's what we're going to learn throughout this next few weeks in some really good, strong, tangible ways. But I have used different relationship tools to build a strong marriage and other relationships. And I wanted to equip my kids with some of the tools that they will need in their life to build strong relationships and to overcome adversities and to not go along with the crowd and to strategically implement positive things that will be beneficial to their lives and to be wise about what won't. And a lot of information. So what I would do is, it helped me to picture at the end of each one of their beds was an empty toolbox. And as I went through my life with all the ups and the downs and the stresses, the good things, the bad things, and the ugly things, I was teaching them by example and by the things that I taught them how to handle those situations, how to handle their lives. And those were tools that I was putting into their toolbox, that when they were ready to leave home, they could just go to the end of their bed and pick up that toolbox and go forward to meet their challenges with a lot of the tools that they would need. See, physically, it's really easy to understand that if my kids need to deal with something, I can't give, if they need something, I can't give it to them unless I have it. For example, if they come up and they say, I would really like a scone, and I don't have scones. If I want to give my kid a scone, I'm going to need to go get a scone, right? So I think that, with their character attributes, it's the same thing. If you have a child that is hypersensitive, and you might not even be hypersensitive, all of a sudden you have to understand how that child has to respond to that sensitivity so that you can give him or her the things that they need to be able to balance their personality and use it as the strength God gave it to be, without the underlying weakness that any misuse of any of our character traits can be. So you have to go and find out how to train your children in that area if you don't have that same problem. Interestingly enough, I have found that a lot of times your kids and kids around you are going to deal with a lot of the same struggles that you've dealt with. So, in order to give them and help them to achieve victory in those areas, we have to get victory first. We are living in a very hostile environment where there's hostility, people are angry, they don't have a lot of answers to how to deal with anger. We have actually corporations that have to offer listening seminars because people haven't learned to listen. They have to offer anger management classes because people haven't learned how to manage their anger. When you're training children, it is a perfect time when you see them getting frustrated to say, look at what I do when I'm angry. Did you see that situation this week when I got so upset? What did I do? And you are literally giving them tools and teaching them things that they can learn and have as part of their toolbox to how to handle things when they get angry. These are big things that we're in charge of training our children. We don't just watch our children and just let them float through the sea, here this way, here tomorrow, trying to find the next fun thing for them to do. We are here to train them. If you want to really know what's ahead of them, all you have to do is see what children are dealing with in 7th and 8th grade now. And you can see, wow, my kid's going to be heading for that. I know they're only 4 right now, but these are the big struggles in schools right now. How can I teach my child victory or in those areas? How can I teach them not to be bullied? How can I give them the confidence and the communication tools and the ability to navigate through those tough waters so that they won't fall prey to the things that many of these kids are falling prey to? How can I give them a sense of purpose at an early age and show them that they have the power to make a difference in their world? We're going to talk about a lot of these strategies as we go through the next few weeks of how to train our children with integrity in our lives. So it's going to be exciting. This book is going to show how also we're going to need to build those things inside of us. We're not going to be able to give our children tools of how to be quiet at the right time if we haven't learned how to do that ourselves. We have to learn how to hold our mouth with the muzzle while wicked are before us so that we don't blurt out the wrong thing at the wrong time. That word, incidentally, wicked in the Bible, if you want to know, like when the Bible says that we have to learn how to hold our mouth when the wicked are before us, that word wicked means harmful in an effect or influence. So, sometimes we think of wicked as some, wicked old witch or something, but the Bible means and categorizes something as wicked as something that's harmful in its influence for your child. And so we want to teach them wisdom as to how to handle things that are going to be harmful in influence without not loving the people around them. We're going to learn a lot of things in this course. I'm going to jump through a few things in a few minutes. But we're also going to I'm going to give you a lot of ideas and things that I strategically did with my 5 diverse personalities that I raised, but they're by no means exhaustive. When we share in this class, you are going to love it because it's going to be a springboard to you as you go through your days. Your mind is going to be going to some of the different things that we might not even go through, but it's going to help you to conceptualize what your children are individually going through and give you a plan on how to address each one of those personal things that they're struggling with and how to take some of those little toddler, young age, elementary school, even junior high and high problems that kids are facing and to see what the root cause is and how we can help them address and get and be victorious over the things that are assaulting them. So, you know what? A wise person builds her house, but a foolish one plucks it down. Are you building your house? How are you building your house? I'm going to tell you a few things that a wise builder knows. as we build integrity and strength into our homes, a wise builder knows that your finished product is only going to be as good as the materials you use. So what materials are you using to train your children? What are you modeling in your life as far as training your children to give them the character, the integrity, the fortitude, the discipline, the self-denial, the things that they're going to need to get through life as an Olympian, not just barely making it, but as somebody on top of their game. Also, a trained eye is going to equip you as a builder to know what areas you need to focus on. We're going to learn things in this class that are going to make you more aware of some of the little things that are really bigger things in disguise, and how to show big things through little struggles. So I think you're going to really appreciate that. And also, a good builder knows that there are going to be problems. So get ready for it. But you know what? You are still the parent. It was funny because I had one of my kids telling me how strong that their kids were. It was so difficult to teach them different things and to do different things. And I said, you know what though? They are strong, but you are stronger. So you are the skilled builder, and you're going to be the one that has that trained eye to see what needs to be worked on. You are going to know that your end result is only going to be dependent on what you're putting in, and you're going to expect the problems. So you're not going to melt or faint or be cast down when there is a problem. You're going to have the tools to handle it yourself. And in so doing, you're going to model some things and put some things in your kids' toolboxes that are going to equip them to handle problems in their lives. And they're going to be able to go off with those same things. But this book is also going to help you to know that, to become aware of your spiritual leadership and give you a more positive account for leading. It's going to help you lead your kids in a way that makes it easier to respect you and obey you as a mature leader. We raise our kids, we've got a long time with them. This is not a sprint, this is a marathon, right? So we have a long time with our kids, and you can't control whether your children will respect you when they become adults. You can't control whether your children will even love you or want to be around you when they become adults. You can't even control whether they're going to take some of the things that you put in their toolboxes and use them. All you can control is to make it so that it will be difficult and nearly impossible for them not to respect you because of the way that they've seen you handle the problems that you face, and they've seen your spiritual fortitude, and they've seen your character tested, tried and true, tested like gold, not perfect, but tested, and you've come out as gold. And, I think that's so important to let your children see the victory, but also sometimes they are going to see your struggle. And we're going to go through different ways to let them in on some of the struggles at their age level, to encourage them that it's not easy. Sometimes it is a struggle, and to teach them to find the right side of the struggle so that they can come back out victorious as well. So I feel like, I think that the most important thing that you have when you have a teenager in your house is that they respect you. That can never start when they're teenagers. They need to start that respect when they're super little and looking way up at you. And as they learn to respect you and see that you're walking the talk and not just telling them to do things that you're not willing to do, I feel like having the respect of my teenagers in my home allowed me to have a home full of teenagers that was just an awesome place to be. Not perfect, but really awesome. And we all grew up with respect and knowing that the struggle was real, but we have the victory, and we handled things the right way, and it was modeled through me. And I feel like that's a responsibility we have to take. I was talking last night at our Better Relationships class, and we were talking about, we're supposed to be the mature ones. you have a bunch of kids that you're going to try to train not to speak at the wrong time, they need to see it in you. Even if, one of my favorite things I'd always say when I was homeschooling is like, I'm not talking. Do you know when it's time not to talk? If you don't know when it's time not to talk, how can you expect your kids to know when to be quiet? We need to model it, train our kids. We need to show them that it is possible to have that soft answer that turns away wrath. It is possible to hold your peace. It is possible to muzzle your mouth. And we have to realize that we can model those things. And we have to really dig deep in what we have and the resources that have been poured into us to use those things when a call is made on those, that we have to stand strong in the integrity that we have and handle things in a mature way so that our kids can see that that accountability is possible. As we build our kids with integrity and know that the integrity does start with us, what we're going to go through isn't like a course on how to make sure your kids have integrity. We can't do that. But what they decide to do with the tools and how they decide to live is up to them. Remember, God is a perfect father and he has prodigal children. But, as we raise our children, we just want to make sure, that we've given them all the tools. What our kids decide to do with what we've given them is one thing, but to know that we aren't faulted because we were remiss and we've given them all the tools to make good choices and to make wise choices, to use knowledge, to apply their hearts to wisdom, so that they can be without excuse. It is a powerful feeling, so we want to just make sure that, I always told my kids, you always find something to say about me on the couch if you need to go there, if you need psychiatric help someday. But I will say, you'll always find a lot of good things too. But just to know that we've done everything in our power and we sacrifice to give them what they need to get through victoriously, then we can be there knowing that even should they try to test some of the principles, that they're wise enough to make the smartest choices and they've been given all the right tools. So our lives were created to reflect God's glory. And it's so easy sometimes to reflect God's glory when we're having a great vacation day or we're, rowing down the lazy river. But it's really when you're in the rapids that's going to show what you're made out of. So let's use those opportunities to find out what's inside of us and what needs to grow and what needs to go. What we're going to feed is going to grow. What we're going to starve is going to die. We need to starve some bad choices and we need to feed some good ones. I always love to say our life is a present. And I used to tell my kids, our life is a gift from God. That's why they call it the present. So I put this big, beautifully wrapped present on the table. And I really wanted them to get the word picture of their life as a gift. And so I put that beautiful present. If they were having a hard day, I'd be like, you are throwing up on the present. This is this day, and I'd name the date, that we're ever going to have it. You're throwing up on this beautiful present. But it's funny, but it made them have a real good word picture of what we do when we ruin this day. And we need to teach them how to turn that around when it happens. And I think it's really important for us to get that word picture that we can turn it around. We don't have to throw up in this present. And if you want to have a beautiful life, then you have to make a beautiful day. And all those days put together will make a beautiful life. So we're going to stretch ourselves. Let's personalize some of the principles that we're going to learn today, like the next few weeks. And what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to be just like the person that I put on the cover of both of my books. As we're building that wall, just like Nehemiah, we have to work with one hand and hold the sword to fight the opposition in the other hand. We're going to build, build, build. And let me tell you, there's going to be opposition to what we want to build into our families, into those children. And we have to fight that opposition to stay strong to what we've been called to build. So some of the things that we're going to learn about as we go through the next few weeks, We're going to learn how to garner contentment in our lives and how to pass it on to children around us. We're going to be able to define what we want our destination to be and what we see for each one of our kids' different destinations. And we're going to learn how to avoid the roadblocks and the obstacles that are going to stop us from getting to those destinations. We're going to realize that a deficit in one area does not restrict our abilities in another. One of the most important things I learned about that with the way God saw me is that I didn't have to be everything to be something. And you know what? I can't be everything. But just knowing that makes me be able to strongly refuse to be less than what God has created me to be. You don't have to be everything. And don't make your kids feel like they have to be everything. Just let them be something and let them know that you love them for all that they are and who they are, but you also love them for who they're not. I remember once when I had the teenagers in the house, I had one of the girls, was telling me what an older lady came by and she said, "Boy, your girls are so beautiful. They're so strong in who they are." And I was just like, anybody can be strong in who they are. They're also beautiful and they're content in who they're not. They don't feel that they have to be everything to be something. I think like learning not only that God knows that we're not everything, but still sees our heart and sees us for who we are. And we don't have to be everything. And living with that contentment can help us to pass that on to our kids, not to train children in our lives and around us that feel like they can never please us and they might as well just give up. But, we want to be the parents that and the aunts and the uncles and the nanas that can show them that if you're trying your best, that's good enough for me. And you don't have to be good at everything because I see that your strengths and I love you for who you are. And I love you even if you're not everything. It's okay. Like, I think just having that permission, and I think the best place to model that first is with your spouse. So, but that's another class. But anyways, we're going to learn the interdependence and the dependence balance. We're going to learn God's plan for community, how to achieve that plan for community, and how to avoid being isolated, which is the first trick of the enemy, is to try to isolate. It was interesting when we were in Africa, before that lion will even attack, it will attack the one that's alone and away from the group. And a lot of times Satan wants to get us away and make us feel isolated and alone, and then he can attack us. We're going to learn how to use community in our families and to make it work really well with our children. We're going to train our children to be good, strong communicators at early ages, how to overcome obstacles of self-consciousness, of shyness, of being afraid to speak up, of insecurities. We're going to teach them how to get through some of those things so that they learn how to communicate. We're going to overcome hindrances to giving. We're going to learn how to earn our children's trust. I have counseled people where as a teenager, their mom threw them under the bus in a situation or two, and they were not able to get over that and to trust their mom again. And you know what? We want to earn our children's trust. And the one thing, that I can tell you right up front is that we just respect them and give them the respect that we would like by not talking negative about them, by having their name be safe in our mouths. My children would never hear me talk negative about anything that they were going through to anybody else, including the people closest to me. I didn't want the people closest to me to see my child by their failures or by their weakest point. I wanted them to see my children as the leaders that I knew they were in the process of becoming. And so I would bring out the best that my children were doing to others. And as they heard me recounting that, it gave them something to live up to because they knew that others did think the best of them and didn't hear the worst in them. So I feel like that is super important don't rehearse your child's struggles with other in front of them, or even when they're not listening, because believe me, the walls have ears and they'll know. But only just make a covenant that you will keep their name safe in your mouth, and that if you need help, go to one trusted person with something that they're going through. But your children don't need to have their weakest point shared with other people. You will earn your children's trust that way. Also, how to train your children's resolve, how to ensure that your mistakes and your child's mistakes, each one of them, that's not going to be what defines them. How to teach them to, to not live in their mistake. There's a book by John Maxwell called Fail Forward. I love that book. I gave it to some of my kids' high school friends, actually. It's how to take some mistakes and take those failures and use them to fail forward, and to go forward, and to step on those mistakes, and to use those mistakes as not as an excuse to keep failing, but as a reason to climb up on them and succeed. How to ensure that you respond correctly to adverse situations. How to incorporate discipline into your daily life. That's a tricky one, and we're going to go through some ways to incorporate discipline and self-denial into the lives of our children. It's so against what we want to do, and just pouring so many things into the lives of our children. But one of the greatest gifts that you can give your children is the gift to deny themselves. The Bible is even pretty specific about it. It says that if any man come after me, Jesus said, let him deny himself daily, pick up his cross and follow me. It says that if you don't do that, you're not even worthy of him. So if we know that denying of ourselves is so important daily, we should first of all look for opportunities on how to deny ourselves, to maybe train children, or to train our children, or to train others' children. That's a great way to deny yourself. But look for ways to deny yourself, and to give your children opportunities, and look for ways that you can teach your child to deny their instant gratifications, so that they can learn how to deny themselves for the bigger picture. Athletes that are at top of their games, the ones that are Olympians, the gold medalists, are the ones that have learned to deny themselves to achieve a greater goal. If we don't train our children how to do that, they're not going to be capable of achieving the greater goal. And so we want to start instituting that early, because otherwise it's really difficult for children who have the whole world revolving around them, and then all of a sudden to get to a point where they have to work a job or save their money. Remember, we're going to keep the end in mind, and we're going to train our children how to get there the strongest way possible, equipped to excel with whatever their life sends them. We're going to learn to raise financially savvy children, how to incorporate discipline into our lives, how to balance our expectations. We're going to learn 4 ways to encourage progress in our children. We're going to learn how to make and evaluate commitments, and how to make commitments that we can stick with, and how to help our kids learn to do that. We're going to learn how to turn obstacles into challenges for ourselves, and how to teach our children to turn obstacles into challenges, which is such a power play in today's world. We're going to help our children choose friends wisely on our day that we go through friendships. It is so paramount. It is so important to learn the different levels of friendship, so that we can categorize, like, if it's a friend that we're walking through life with, that we're intimate friends with, we can give and receive information and advice from. But we might have school friends that were friends at school, and my children had to learn at an early age, those are your school friends. Yes, every single person can add to your life, and you can add to their life. But here's how these are school friends. Be friends with them at school, but you're not walking on the same road. And so we cannot encourage those friendships after school. We're going to teach our children how to make wise friends. What's the definition of a good friend? My kids the ones that are even on here can probably say it even now. it is somebody that you are making their life better because you're in it and they are making your life better. That's an intimate friend. And you don't find a lot of those. So how do you deal with different school friends and teach your children not to undervalue a person, but to realize that there are different levels of friendship and how to avoid being impacted negatively by people that they definitely are on different roads from. So I always told my kids, everybody's got a line. We've got to make a line, and we have to make sure that no one pulls us off from our God-given destiny of who he wants us to be in our lives for just a short-term popularity contest or something like that. We're going to learn when sharing isn't caring. Did you know we shouldn't always share? There's some things that we have to be wise stewards of, and that involves not sharing sometimes. So we're going to go through some of that and how to help your child know the difference of the things that they really are free to share and some of the things that they shouldn't be sharing. How to put life in perspective by the parables that we're living out. How to teach character attributes, develop family traditions, and actually at the very end, one of the appendixes how some homeschooling helps, which I don't think at the time we realized how many people were going to be homeschooling. But knowledge is getting information and wisdom is applying it. We have a few minutes left, and I do want to go through some of the application questions just to challenge you this week for some things that you can be thinking about before we really jump in next week. I feel like next week we're going to go through a lot of information, and I want you to think about it before we get there. But, we're going to look at our life as a parable and how our Father on earth loves us and our mother on earth loves us. A lot of times kids learn how God feels about us. In the parable of life, when we were children, hopefully we learned from our parents. And what we want to train our children to learn from us is that they are loved not because of their great accomplishments or because they're 100% or because of their performance or because how they make you look or how we made our parents look or because they worship us or go along with our agenda. They're loved in just the same way we are loved by God, based on the nature and capacity of God to love us. And that's what we want to show our kids. We want to show them the love of God that shows that they are loved because of our capacity to love them, not because of what they do to deserve it or to earn it, which can be lost the next day if they don't meet that criteria. We want to show that their Father is the embodiment of what real love is. He joys over us with singing. And I know a lot of you on here, I know you sing to your kids. You joy over them with singing. And we do show them how much we love them by that. We want to be a safe place for our kids. One of the things I love about God is he says, when you're overwhelmed, go to the rock that is higher than you are. He always gives you a place to run for the little things and the big things. I know a lot of parents believe in telling their kids, go figure it out. But there's a certain point when your kids feel overwhelmed that they've got to know whatever that bar is, which you can keep trying to raise it higher and higher to help them to be overwhelmed less easily. But when they're overwhelmed, they've got to know that you are there to back them up and that you're there to help them through. So I feel like, we want to be a safe place for our kids. We want them to know that they're safe with us and that we're with us too. Also, that their Father delights to give us every good gift. Your kids have to know that your plans for them are for good and not evil, to give them an expected end. And I think that's just a good thing to know. And that's one of the things that are most important that we model to our children so that they can correctly understand the love of God. Maybe you didn't have parents that correctly did all those things or some of those things, but you know what? We do have a God that does that. And we have to learn to see him as the Father heart so that we can correctly show him to our kids. As parents, we learn that we have kids, not so that we can, lord over somebody or make us look good or have the ideal family or anything else, but we had our children so we could share all that we are and all that we have. That's why we had our kids. And so that we can have a meaningful relationship with our kids. We hope that our kids will carry on our family name, heart, influence, impact in the world. We love our babies and delight in them, not because of what they do or don't do, but just, or because of their abilities, but because those babies are our expression of love, aren't they? And we want to prosper and let them have the best life possible, even when it involves great sacrifice on our part. You're never so willing to sacrifice until you see like your children. And it was really beautiful. I got a note from a couple of my kids this past few weeks, and they said, we're finally getting to the point where we realize we don't even want to keep accruing things for ourselves. Like, we're now looking to start to sacrifice so that we can equip our kids to have a great life and a great future. And that's maturity, that when you want to decrease so your kids can increase. But the devils come in like a flood, and we want to lift up that standard. So we're going to take this journey, and we're going to discover parenting the way that God meant it to be, as a reward, as a way to realize his love for us, and as our lives can demonstrate his power and his glory to the world, to be known and read by everybody. So here's a few questions for you that I want you to think about. They're in the workbook. And anybody that doesn't have a workbook, I did purchase the books from my publisher for about a 20% discount, and I'm willing to sell them for $5 for you if you're taking this class, or even for free if you don't have the $5. I want you to come and get a book. So contact me. I'll leave them on my porch. I'll try to get them to you, even if I have to mail them to you. But you do want to have a book and hopefully a workbook. But what are a few lessons that you've learned in your life that you want to give to your children? Write those down. Write a few things that you learned, maybe through hard knocks, but something that was maybe a part of a struggle that you went through, and it maybe took you a while to learn that lesson, but you want to give that to your children. We'll go through with how to give that to your children and break it down to their age level, and how you can give those victories to your children at earlier ages. But just knowing that is going to help you to strategically think of a way to give them victory in the areas that you want to give them victory in. Interestingly enough, a lot of people do struggle with the same things. So say that you were fearful. I was always fearful of storms because my mom used to hide me under her couch at the sign of any thunderstorm. And I did get victory over that. And that's one of the things that I did want to give my kids. And so I implemented some strategies so that my kids wouldn't be so afraid of storms. But what are some of the attributes you need to build into your own life before you can pour it into your kids' lives? Do you see your kids, or any of the kids around you, struggling in areas that you still haven't gotten victory in? What are some steps that you can take to get victory in, so that you can model and actually give and train your children how to get victory in those areas? Think of a few things you need to build into your own life right now, and take some steps to do it. One of the challenge I gave at the Better Relationships class last night was to stop speaking mid-sentence. If you hear something not good coming out of your mouth, stop talking. Just say, I'm not talking right now. We have to know when to shut up and when to speak up. We'll work on that one if you don't have one, something that you want to build in. Now, picture each one of your children, or the children that you impact in your life. Think of them with a toolbox at the end of their bed. What tools are most important in your mind that you want to give to your children to leave home with when they leave your home? Let's think of that right now. List them down on a piece of paper. What are some of the most important tools that you've realized that you want your children to leave your house with? Write them down so that we can think about those and strategize how to give them to them now. See, that's awesome. Yeah. See, isn't that beautiful? I love that, Kristen, that, the things that God's given us, He's got the ability to supernaturally, abundantly, beyond all we ask or dare to think or desire. He can give us all of our needs according to his riches. So if we haven't gotten him, you're right, we can get them now so that we can impart them to those behind us and those who are in charge of influencing and impacting. That's why we're still on this earth. So that's so exciting to me. What character qualities do you want to train your children with but need to strengthen in your own life? And following Nehemiah 4:17, what do we need to pick up in order to build the family we want? What are some of the things we have to do? You don't have to put a list of 10, put a list of 2. And what opposition are we facing, or do we anticipate facing in training the kids around us? What is your plan to break through the obstacles? I think those are some exciting beginning things. Does anybody have, we have four minutes here. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to share? Are you excited about this class? Sorry it's so late at night. I think that it's going to yield great benefits though. Next week, we're going to jump into chapters 1 and 2, how to be content with who I am, which is the number one contentment. A lot of times we think of contentment with things, right? But with who I am and what I have. And then we're going to go through lesson 2, how to show and make your children capitalize on the fact that we are part of a family. You know, so I'm glad. Good. It is going to be inspiring and empowering. We're going to keep it so just to really work on this. We're going to take this time and we're going to really work on this. And we're going to take these next few weeks to maybe do some brain searching. We might be a little bit uncomfortable with some of the questions. It might be a little bit unusual for us. But if we take this time to devote on these most important topics, we're going to be better stewards over the kids and in our lives, all of them, and realize sometimes something might seem so little, but it's communicating something so big. Like little things are big things. For example, if you think your child has no one to run to when they're frustrated, that's a little thing at their age, but it can become such a big thing. Or the way you're maybe handling situations, which there's something my mom taught me, so many things my mom taught me, but one of the things is your child isn't going to remember some of the things that they have or toys or maybe even some of the grades on their tests, but they're going to remember how they felt. So those feelings that a 2-year-old feels of, I can do it, I can be anything, or I can't do anything right. Those feelings are things that are built on. So those aren't little things when our child doesn't feel good enough, or they don't feel like they're up to par, or they feel like, you're disappointed in them. Like, we don't want our kids to grow up feeling like they're a disappointment. And we're going to start looking at some things that we can tangibly do to address some of the things we so harmlessly fall into that can be so dangerous in the long run. So thank you so much for coming. And I'm so appreciative of each one of you guys that took the time to come. I'm going to try to have this recording available and post it on Facebook. So if you know somebody who maybe wanted to come that couldn't, you could pass it on to them. But now that you know how to get on here, next week, I will see you promptly at 8:30, and we'll have another great session as we put our brains to being the best that we can in equipping this future generation to shine as bright lights. Okay, thanks a lot, you guys. God bless you guys.